You got to bring the body back to life out of trauma. That is the secret to having a good love life. That is the key to unlocking intimacy in the bedroom, not positions or pills. You want to go to the root of the cause and get organic in that process and know yourself at the fundamental root of your sexual nature. If there is fear, shame, and guilt that is being held back and hasn't been healed, that's going to come up. And that's what causes relational problems. We end up just repeating the unconscious patterns that we witnessed as children. And that's no fun for anybody.
Guys, hey, it's Delia, of course. Who else? Who else would it be? Please enjoy this conversation with Daniel. I just want to warn you that I had to run to a Pilates class at the end of this recording, so it ends really abruptly. We might do a part 2 later on, but for now, just thought I would tell you that. Daniel is another one in my series of random people I met off Twitter. And it's a really fun conversation, so enjoy.
Yeah, just overall, this is a really fulfilling day. I don't have many bad days, Delia. I really don't. It's once the body, and this is just because of years of work, but once you get the body kind of alive and you get kind of the inner work down, every day is kind of like an adventure. It's just kind of feeling like a kid again. That's really what I'm about.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, so before we get into how you grew up, can you explain what your work is? I feel like I've got a good sense of it from listening to you talk, but I wouldn't know how to put it into words. So I'd love if you could do that.
Yeah. Sure. So really my work evolves around the body. It evolves around becoming like that kid again, knowing like that hasn't been lost, like our innocence is still there. And it really is an integrative process. So, my work is all about learning how to have a healing connection with the body so we can bring our true essence back to life by revitalizing the body in the life process. And it's really in my coaching work that I do, I reverse engineered the last 10 years of my life and the best modalities that have really that are the most functional, that are the most realistic and practical, and that actually deliver results and bringing that body back to life and vitality, healing trauma and healing disconnection from ourselves, from our root personhood, and how to overcome that. So our natural gifts and our natural personality can begin coming back to life. And so that's really what I'm about. And, there's a dynamic approach that I use specifically in working with the body so we can begin reordering the unconscious mind. Our body is our unconscious mind. It's a repository of everything we've ever felt, thought, or every emotion we've ever experienced. And, we want that union. The body wants to feel healthy and vibrant again, but we develop these neurotic attitudes of wanting to keep ourselves protected and shielded from the emotional pain we experienced as children. And the greatest discovery of my life is the fact that we don't have to live that way. It's not a life sentence. We can actually come to terms with what went on with us, and we can begin incrementally healing the nervous system to feel grounded and secure in the fullness of our humanity. And what does that mean? Well, it means we can feel all things. We can be fully feeling again. We can know our emotions. We can have a spiritual healing relationship with our core just by being who we are, nothing more and nothing less. So that's pretty much what I do.
Amazing. And I love this from your website. It says, so Yoked Soul, helping men who feel invisible become seen, respected, and desired. So do you mainly work with men?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to change that. My guy that was working on that website for me, I'm gonna have him. I had him. I thought he changed everything. It's really designed to say men and women now. I recently opened up my coaching program, rebranded it over to Genius of the Body, um, instead of Yoked Soul, and I just had some good counsel. This the copywriter was like, after I kind of explained what I did, he's like, yeah, you're kind of like David Data. You're kind of going to be the new David Data for this generation. I can see you doing this and doing that. And he says, Yoke Soul sounds too bro. He's like, that's too like of a bro branding. And he's like, women are going to want to work with you more than men, because men are kind of, they won't change until they have to. Women want to change because women are more in touch with their bodies, and they want to feel better. Like, they want their beauty and their essence and their naturalness to be online. And so we spent a lot of time talking about that, and I was convinced that that's the way to go. And so that's my rebranding. That's the essence of my rebranding, is Genius of the Body. Because at the end of the day, what I want to coach people into, men developing their masculine core identity, women developing their feminine core identity. There is a bioenergetic root in the nature of our sexuality. And that is the greatest block that we have to overcome from the childhood trauma and those dynamics, is returning home to ourselves and the natural essence. These bodies are sexual beings, and we are spiritual. We're hooked into them. We're hooked into the body senses. From that moment of conception, we began to unfold as this spirit of God made in his image. But we have these bodies that were really conformed and made in the image of man, and in the bodily attitudes and values of our parents, and society and the culture we live in. And it's just something that we adapted to. But when we realized, like, that process of domestication, of adaptation, of what we had to sacrifice in ourselves to be loved and accepted at the expense of our own authentic feelings, this happens in men and women. This is not, and so I'm gender neutral. I'm neutral in that respect now. It made a lot of sense to begin, giving my message out there to both genders, because, we both are wounded at that same inflection point of childhood, that there's something in me that is not good. There's something in me that has to be sacrificed for approval in this family system, that is not always going to honor that little boy or girl in us that just wanted to play and be fully loved and fully seen and to feel secure and all that. Because as children, we're all in. It's an all in commitment. All we know is the parents' love and affection. So, their word is law. They are the word from on high. They are the representation of God's heart. And, because of their own stress and trauma, they're not always going to do the best job and in helping us to organically grow into the fullness of our gifts, so to organically grow into the fullness of a personality that's the expression of a healthy and vibrant body. And so, to help people unlock how they've been shut down unconsciously. And that's really where I go with my work now. My message is, that's the genius of the body, Delia, is that our bodies did a good service for us in shutting us down. It protected us to the best of its ability. It's like, ooh, that did feel good. And but then, as adults, we're like, wow, that was actually my heart that was shutting down. That was actually my soul that was shutting down. Oh my God, can I do anything about this? And the good news is, yes, you can heal that stuff. You can get rooted back into the body and have a very grounded relationship with the self, so we can mature into selfhood. We can release those suppressed feelings and have that convert into joy and an expansion of being. This is all real. This is not just, you know, some theory or something I read in a book yesterday. This is a real lived experience people can go through. And so, that's the beauty of my work. It's an integrative process that helps people kind of reclaim their selfhood and their identity and who they truly are at their core, which is a child of God. No matter how serious people take themselves, the power broker, the man that has everything on paper, the woman that has everything on paper. It's like, okay, all that's cool. It has its place. I respect that. That's no problem. I mean, everybody, to say, oh, that's not appropriate or not needed. That's a lie. We all want that. We want the attention, we want the popularity, we want the friends, but not at the expense of the heart. It can all be done. You can have power and have influence, all that, but it doesn't have to be at the expense of our true self, of our feeling nature, of this natural, life process in us that wants to fully come out and be seen and soothed and loved and feel secure at the same time. And so, that's really my message to people. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, I'm just trying to get your um wait, did you okay, because I feel like your bio's changed. Sorry, I'm reading your Twitter bio. So convert
Mm,
stress into power with bioenergetics, self-regulation, holistic healing for the high achiever. Strengthen your true
mm.
self with embodiment. But I feel like before it used to say something about Christianity, and obviously you've mentioned it now. And I
Yeah.
love this. Like, I can't wait to get more into this after we kind of do growing up.
Oh,
But
yeah.
about
Yeah.
so you're
Yeah.
talking about like reclaiming sexuality and like masculine and
Yeah.
feminine energy and all this stuff, which
Yeah.
is just so obvious that we're like humans living in a body and have these desires and what this is literally how children are made. Like it's like, but then it feels like
Right?
religion is, I guess, the association with a lot
Oh,
of religion is like it's
yeah.
repression and there's
Mm,
sin and we have to act like sex doesn't
mm,
exist, or there's so much confusion around that. So I
mm.
love that you're
So
kind of
much confusion. And that's my story. It really is, Christian spirituality rooted in bioenergetics. But I'll say this up front is that my approach is a non-dogmatic incremental approach to bringing life and vitality in the body. It doesn't matter what a person professes they believe, there is a body there that we have in common. The one common thing that we all have together is that we have these hormonally driven bodies that are fueled by the intelligence of life, which is informed by the primary directive to create life. So how do we get out of our own ways to allow that to happen without a neurotic stronghold in our soul that says something's wrong with us? Because that's created by man. That's not created by God. Sex is beautiful, but it was only in my opening of my heart to my own woundedness that I was able to become strong in my vitality and my masculine core identity and to stop judging people and to stop having a superior attitude. And all of this was the healing of the narcissistic split that formed in me when I was a little boy. And it's the same thing happens in girls when they're little girls, is that this is the reality of where I'm coming from and my philosophy and how I root this into Christian spirituality is that, you know, at those ages, we all have a, a sexual attraction and have sexual feelings for the opposite sex parent. It is what it is. Some people will hear that and be like, oh, what is this blasphemy? That didn't happen to me. That's sacrilege. This is some kind of secular Freudian, burn him. And I'm like, listen, guy or girl, it is what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. This is nature. This is the natural cycle of life. This is where our deepest wounding is that there's something wrong with our sexuality. There are mind games and head games played with us when we're children in that vulnerable state. Sexuality for children, when we're at that age, right around 6 or 7 years of age, we have our first influx of sex hormones and we are fully feeling, we're exuberant. We're going to mommy or daddy. In this case, let's go to mommy. Like, mommy, look, like, oh, I'm so into you. They're the best. I'm in love with you. It's this need for attachment and affection. We are in our innocence. This is what people don't understand. This is how our hearts get broken. We are in our innocence. This is naturally happening in our bodies. And it's an expression piggybacked on the emotional energy of connection and the need for connection and affection. But now it's has sexual energy into it, but it's not connected to the genitals. Not at that age. We don't know anything about that. It makes no sense to us that we'd be like, oh, this is going to lead to sex. Like, come on. Like, who are we kidding? That's a retarded view. That's not what that is when we're children. We're in our innocence. And so that's when all the wounding happens. That's what really shuts the door on our heart because we're such open empathic containers. We know what's going on in that dynamic of the household. We know that okay, wait, okay, that's inappropriate. Don't put that energy on me. An unhealthy mother is going to if there's emotional conflicts, in the family, the mother's going to, you're going to get in a love triangle. You're going to be triangulated. The mother's going to start, putting her needs on you. She's going to putting the burden on you to provide for her emotionally, right? Let's say the marriage is dead. They don't have a good sex life. And suddenly now you have the sexual energy and your innocence. And now you're going to mom with that. And that perks her up. It makes her feel good. She's like, wow, okay, I like this affection. I'm gonna have fun with this little boy. And then it's this, that's where all the problems begin. Same thing happens with women and their dads. It's this, we're in their innocence, and that innocence gets taken advantage of. There's inappropriate emotional bonding. There's inappropriate emotional dynamics, and it really all hinges on the emotional health of the parents and how they respect that. If the sexuality, the individuality and the sexuality and the personality of the child is respected, then that creates a perfect container for that sexual energy to grow in an emotionally healthy body, an emotionally healthy body that develops secure attachment. Like, this is normal, and in my case, growing up, it was like there was so much guilt around sexual desire. There was so much guilt and there was so much humiliation around sexual feelings. And so to graduate, to grow up finally and to see it for what it is. Now, mind you, this is deep stuff, right? This is not stuff that you're just going to be like, oh, I heard Daniel talk about this. Now I got to go and talk to my, did this really happen? Your soul, your body has to reveal that to you, is my point. So it only really happens with maturity. You have to be emotionally healthy for your body to begin revealing these kind of deep, deep threads and narratives of what we actually went through. That's the beauty and that's the genius of the body. It knows, like, hey, if I reveal this to him, he's going to have a breakdown. The body's like, hey, I can't give, he's not, this person is not even in touch with me. Most people are so, those events that I just described, that is repressed, that is denied, that is shut down out of conscious awareness. So people can hear what I'm saying there, but unless you're doing the deep inner work to truly know yourself, to know yourself at the root identity of how your body and your soul was betrayed by those people that should have been loving and caring and emotionally healthy, grooming you into the fullness of your being with respect and appreciation, you're not going to be able to understand that story as it applies to you individually unless you're doing the inner deep work of healing. And this is the deep work of connecting to the root connection to our sexuality, to our sexual identity as man or woman, in the full feelings of everything that we need to feel. And that's when life really becomes an adventure. But it's a process. It comes in layers. It's a gradual evolving process of life maturity. If life could have its way, none of us would be neurotic. We'd be perfectly seasoned where we were in life, contributing to family, community with a robust sense of self, a strong and secure, grounded sense of self, open-hearted, fully loving, and giving of our gifts for the rest of our lives. Like, that's a perfect humanity. That is heaven on earth. That is something we can all strive for, by the way, but we have to understand our responsibility to know love. We have to understand our responsibility to know what love is as a feeling, to know faith as a feeling. My greatest suffering, Delia, was growing up like that, what I'd mentioned with those kind of circumstances, and it wasn't all bad. This kind of stuff wasn't even revealed to me until about, a few years ago. And then it's been a gradual process of maturing into that revelation, which was really the final piece to the puzzle. It's allowed me to integrate anger and aggression and sexuality into my personhood. It's allowed me to be a fully feeling man, to know that anything that comes up is a-okay with me. I can handle it because I'm not defined by that, but it makes this fun ongoing experience of life, and how much my body feels and how empathic I actually am and how I can actually experience and receive people without judgment or hangups or fear. And so, this is the level people can get to because it's our birthright to fully feel again. We don't, childhood trauma is not a life sentence. We don't have to continue to lick our wounds for the rest of our days with a sad song and woe is me. That's that there's an appropriate time and place for that, but we can all grow and mature beyond that, is my message. And, but some of my earliest memories was how much I loved my body. Like, I remember back to when I was 1 and 2 years of age. I mean, I was 2.5 years of age at an ice skating rink, born in Oregon, living in Oregon, and and I remember dancing in an ice skating rink, and how much I loved music. It just made me feel like excited. And some of those were some of the earliest memories, just how much I loved, dancing and music and pleasure, and especially those sexual feelings, and and especially girls. Oh my goodness, and and yeah, it was hurtful to have an over domineering, controlling mother, and at this time of my life, I've been able to overcome those unconscious mental models that had me angry. I didn't understand why I had hostility towards women for many years, and I was like, wow. And now when I look at guys, I'm like, yeah, most guys have deep hostility for women. It's sad, and I kind of laugh, but it's true. And and look, I think that's really the deepest level of shame that both men and women have, in not being able to be in the fullness of their sexuality, not being in the fullness of being able to embrace the genius of their body. Like, hey, thanks for what you did. I understand I had to structure my character around defensiveness and body armoring because that stuff was very painful. But the genius of the body can also flip to the other side. Instead of having, when we understand who we truly are in our authority and dominion created in the image of God, and really who we are in our eternal nature, we have the power to heal our bodies. We have the power to flip the script and say, okay, I love you, everything you protected me from, but hey, this is limiting my life. This is limiting me from being able to be full hearted, with an open heart as a loving person in connection with other people. And so, that's connecting to the body and to waking up life, and waking up vitality, waking up our natural energy reserves, and returning and healing that connection to that inner child that was shut down and imprisoned in our soul, in the belly of feelings of hell, and in the heart shut down that had become cold because of hatred and resentment. Yeah, there's freedom. There's freedom on the other side of that. And so it's been, quite a journey in coming back home to my body, and from those kind of lived experiences. But the Christian spirituality, Delia, I was raised with that. I was raised with thinking that there was something wrong with me. I was raised thinking that I was just this depraved sinner at my core, and that there was something ultimately really wrong with me. And I just always had to be kind of down on myself and others. And, you know, what a lie. What a big bowl of baloney that was. And so when I realized, hey, it's not even about that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me. I was conditioned to think there was something wrong with my body and my sexuality so my parents could control me. Period. End of story. Had nothing to do with Christianity. I was just forced to go to church, and then I would read because I had that broken view of myself from a broken family dysfunctional system. I would go to the church and hear pastors talking, and be like, oh, just like what my parents said. Damn, this life sucks. Well, what do I do? Is this ever going to get better? This sucks. And so, you know, healing from that and saying, okay, that's man. Man wanting to judge the life of the body. You're kidding me? These bodies are our greatest spiritual gift God has ever given us. We don't interface with people. We don't interface with creativity. We don't interface with our spiritual gifts until we heal our bodies and get rooted down into the nature of our identity, this human identity, this true self experience. And then, as we develop in that relationship, that we can heal all the dogma, and really it is about healing on that emotional level of our body consciousness, where we reclaim our strength, we reclaim our boundaries, we realign with integrity. Integrity and dignity, these are not just great virtues to strive for. These are things that come online when the body is healed, the body consciousness is healed. And this is the process of holistic healing, is understanding how these dynamics work together. But it always comes down to the body, and how a person is with themselves is always being revealed to others. We truly are a lot more naked among one another than most people are willing to believe, but it really is that way. And that's why sex and sexuality is such a sacred thing. And that's why it is such a special thing, and why it is something that really should just be reserved between two people that want to grow in their connection and heal in their connection and understand God through that connection. I don't believe that there's any such thing as a polyamorous person that has secure attachment. I don't think it exists. I don't think it exists at all. People that want to talk about evolutionary psychology, I personally counter that. I don't agree with any of that at all. I think that's garbage. I think that our bodies are the supreme apex predators. The human body, more than any other evolved creature in the animal kingdom. And we have ancient of days and ancient wisdom of life flowing through our veins. We are so directly connected to nature. You look at, animals and plants, and birds, and what nature itself, they are so in tune with the life process. Our bodies can do that too. And but it is our dogma, it is our belief, it is our black and white thinking that prevents us from having that open, fully feeling, flourishing state. We try to overcomplicate things in our brains. We're like, we know that trauma happened, and we try to build a life without being connected to the heart that makes no sense to the body. The body's like, hi, I'm here. I'm still, no acknowledgement, you don't care. And our heart is connected to that. Our heart is connected to what our body went through. Our heart is connected to our trauma and our feelings and our deepest feelings. And so, in that way, I like to keep my life pretty simple. I like to have a very simple devotion of a feeling sense of self that's in love with God and people, because I don't know of any better way to be. So, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, we need to hear about your story. So, you grew up in Oregon. Whereabouts?
Until age 3. That's right. Mhm.
Where in Oregon were you?
So I was born in Forest Grove, but grew up in Beaverton. Mhm. Yeah.
And then where did you move to?
And so lived there for a few years. Pardon me. And then from there moved to Clovis, California. So from there, made the journey south, and really lived until about age 9, right around until like 5th grade, and then moved to the Central Valley of California, just about an hour's journey north from there, and then made my way through school until I graduated. From there, from a little town called Turlock in the Central Valley of California. Yeah.
And what did your parents do?
Yeah. So my dad was in sales. So he was in insurance sales. And my mother she was a teacher. She eventually, got her teaching degree, went back to school to be a teacher. And so yeah. So
And they moved around for work.
no, I mean, we moved to Clovis, and then my grandmother had become sick, and we ended up. My mom was making trips up there, and to Turlock from Clovis, and then it just became too much, and my grandmother passed away, and then we just ended up inheriting that place, the home that my mother grew up in. And it was this little tiny farmhouse, little ranch house on 10 acres up there in the Central Valley. And yeah, so it was I really liked that part of it, kind of being out in nature, a little bit separate from the busyness and the traffic of city life. And I really liked that aspect of growing up, being connected in nature. Very similar to kind of where I'm at now. I live currently in Rancho Santa Fe in San Diego, and it's about 5 miles from the beach, but it's very rural feeling. So it kind of reminds me of those roots. And some of my greatest memories were growing up in Oregon, and all of the greenery and the plants and the trees. And it's like that just, it feels good. I just like that. And when I go to the San Diego Zoo, my favorite thing, I mean, the animals are cool, but I love being surrounded by all those plants. Like, to me, nature is just, oh, it's just so exquisite and beautiful. It's just feels so cozy to my soul. So yeah.
Amazing. And
Mm.
so your mum's family's from Oregon.
Well, her side, my dad's family was from up there, and then my mother's side of her family was from there in the Central Valley of California.
Got
Yeah.
it. And do you know the stories of when they came to the US?
I don't know the stories of when they came to the US, but more of the story in terms of like their connection to their parents and how that was for them. And honestly, that's been one of the best things that I've ever learned. And I would recommend to anybody listening to this podcast to know the story of your parents. That is profoundly powerful and healing to the soul. To know that, know it, know what those, and not just, oh, well, he was an insurance guy, she was a teacher. Know the emotional dynamics, know them in the context of how life was for them with their parents. There's something there. This is such a missing link for so many people. And that right there, and studies have been done on this actually with neuroscience and attachment, that if you want to have secure children, if you want to grow them up so they feel secure, if you want to know yourself better as a person, that is a hallmark of making that happen. That is one of the most powerful leveraging things we can do, is know the narrative of your parents. It's so healing. It shows them that, wow, these are just people that had problems like I've had. This is how I've followed in their footsteps unconsciously. This is, I am the expression of their unlived life. And it just helps, like for me, it's helped me to accept them. It's helped me to be like, okay, I know that they were not perfect. Oh Lord, I know they were not perfect, but I'm not going to develop a resentful attitude towards them. I've had to forgive them. I've had to really deeply forgive them, because they were just doing what they knew how to do. And if they were unhealed and carrying along stuff, this is intergenerational trauma. And so, to break those chains and to be the best version of myself, I've had great mentors that have helped with that process. And the deeper layers that I've been able to heal, the more I've been able to be like, they weren't so bad after all. There were plenty of good moments. I'm going to just focus on those. I know what those dark moments were, and they sucked. Oh, God, they were devastating. They broke my heart, shut me down, and hurt me for so many years. But now I'm at a place where it's like, there's a hell of a lot of good moments, too. There were. There really were. It wasn't all a sad story. A big theme of it, probably most of it was, but I can draw upon those good moments now in reflection. Yeah.
Amazing. So, did you have siblings?
Did. I had grew up with 3 sisters and 1 brother.
Wow. What number are you?
Yeah. So I was second to last.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so what was your childhood like?
Well, kind of what I alluded to earlier, it was chaotic. I mean, the home was kind of crazy. I mean, it was yeah, a lot of chaos, a lot of insecurity, a lot of instability. Just the emotional climate was you only know this in retrospect, looking back now, but yeah, it was there were a lot of adverse events, a lot of adverse circumstances, very challenging. Yeah, my goodness, we could go down a deep rabbit hole with that, but I would say it was very unstable. There was a lack of financial stability, lack of heartfelt um, love, a lack of security, a lack of feeling like, wow, I'm really, genuinely sought after and cared for. I really, I matter so much. I'm just excited about life. There was a real lack of a felt sense of grounding and security in my home, in this family system. And so, healing from that has been, first understanding it, and then healing from that has been quite the journey for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Did your parents have a good relationship with each other?
Well, the truth is that my dad had cheated on my mother, and I didn't know this until I was in my teen years. And but the fallout from that was, a lot of why I was so traumatized by an over dominant mother and by a controlling mother, is she was projecting into me all of her deepest woundings from that event. Now, they didn't divorce, which almost made it worse, because then there were these unspoken tensions, these unspoken pockets of of resentment and despair, which is the most heinous emotional environment to grow up in and try to know who I am, with all of these guilt feelings, especially towards my body and the way I wanted to live and the way I wanted to fully feel. And so, yeah, it was really a shame based emotional atmosphere, heavy on the guilt, heavy on the shame, heavy on the manipulation, heavy on the suspicion, heavy on the doubt, and wow, so taxing, so disheartening and taxing on my system and
And
everybody in the family. And
I'm
you know,
guessing were you
yeah,
a
it
sen
was rough.
Oh no, sorry, I dropped out. Um, and I'm guessing you a sensitive child, so you kind of bore the brunt of this emotion? Because I feel like it's sometimes in these dynamics, kids can, if you're not as sensitive to other you can just kind of like get on with things and you don't have that awareness versus if you
Oh, the
really
body
feel,
knows.
it's like,
Yeah, the body knows. Like none of us can ever kid ourselves. Did um, you know, yeah, I was sensitive because every child is sensitive. This is the thing: is everybody is highly empathic at those ages. We're just poured into, and the most confusing thing for me though was this confusion over, okay, you guys gave me life and you don't like my life, like you gave me this body and you don't like my body. I mean, it was like so confusing, like you don't like me, or like there's something wrong with me, like and so that was really, the confusion. That was the sense of kind of the betrayal of my body, the shutting down of my heart, the like, the, well, I guess this is just the way life is, but it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good at all. I mean, children know when their boundaries are violated. The body knows. I was not allowed to express anger. I was not allowed to express, um, boundary. And so my boundaries were walked on, violated, trespassed, 7 ways till Sunday. It just was relentless. And so developing my sense of self and developing strong ego strength and getting a strong nervous system and a body that has come back to life out of those circumstances has been the greatest thing that I've ever done in my life. And to know that, wow, I actually learned a very specific, systematic methodology of being able to help others find their own internal freedom. Um, is huge, because really that's what it did when I was a child. Children, this goes for everybody. This is not just because, this is universal, is that in our little minds, our little child minds at those time, we blame ourselves. We blame ourselves. We accept shame as who we are because it's inconceivable that we would be treated like that. It makes no sense to us. It's nonsense. It almost creates this alternative reality of non-reality, of like, my emotions are being denied, my feelings are being judged, I cannot be my real self. So okay, like, how do you want me now that I'm dead? How do I need to be? Okay, well, I guess my survival depends on it. Okay, I guess I'll just be the right way. I guess I'll just say the right thing and feel the right things, whatever that means. And so that's kind of the beauty, but also the curse of how we adapt, and we don't think about it. It just happens automatically. And this is why I'm so big on grace and so big on unconditional love and so big on the hope message that, yeah, no, you can heal. That's not a life sentence, because I've been through it. I know what that is like. I know how that creates the living hell of the mind later in adult life. You could be the most accomplished person on earth. It doesn't matter if your heart and your body is shut down. Means no difference. Makes no difference at all. And so, that's really, that's what I grew up with. And yeah, my mother, she was cruel. She was cruel. She was hyper dominant. She was a beautiful woman, but super narcissistic. Very, very narcissistic. And my dad, bless his heart, he was never an example of masculine strength. You know, if he would have come to me and said, "Hey, man, I know what you're going through. I'm so sorry that I'm bringing. I brought this upon the family. I'm sorry she's treating you that way. Hey, you got me. You can come to me. Hey, man, I just don't know what to do. And I'm trying to do my best here, but I know why she is the way she is, and I'm sorry that you're having to get some flack from that. I'm sorry she's doing that to you and treating you that disrespectfully. I'm sorry she is that way to you." If he would have said that, it would have completely changed the course of my life. He didn't say that, and by the grace of God, the course of my life still changed because there were other people that have come into my life, strong men, men that embody the love of God, but they're powerful men. They could throw you across the room without even touching you. And I'm not lying about that. They're literally that powerful. And so I was, it's so funny that, that life works that way. That God, knowing my deepest woundings from hyper masculinity, I mean, the grandfather, my grandfather, the man who raised my mother, when I began to understand that narrative, I'm like, oh my God, brutal what he had to go through and how he was unhealed and how he must have been treating her. And now knowing the body so well and knowing how to read bodies and knowing where people are holding and knowing her body type, I'm like, oh my God, she this makes complete sense. She was sexually humiliated as a young girl, and this happens to girls all the time. Girls are in the fullness of their sexuality and they're shut down, or the parent, they feel like now their mother could kill them, or now they're in competition with mom, and there's all kinds of problems. Women go through the exact same thing men do. But my point there is, I understand. I get it now. I understand why she was the way she was. It doesn't justify it. It just means it makes sense to me. It didn't feel good, but it did happen. So, it's helped me to kind of metabolize those wounds into strength. And then, my dad was, you know, he had this, his tail was tucked between his legs. He knew what he did, but he never got over it. He never became embodied in life and vitality. He never had a comeuppance of his true strength with an open-hearted relationship with the soul that said, yeah, I blew it, but I'm not going to let that hold me down. How can I make amends and create a level of intimacy and safety and connection, and make sure this family feels secure? He didn't never went that way with him, and that's okay. But he had that hyper masculinity. When something was wrong, they would come down hard with the hand of God, and so it was very extreme, one under the other. There was not a celebration of the children of the family. There was talk, but that doesn't mean anything, because ultimately, for everybody listening to this podcast, ultimately, we become who our parents were and the character structure of their bodies, not who they said they were. We become energetic. This is the beauty of body consciousness. We're always learning from one another's body consciousness. We learn from our parents' body consciousness. So they could say one thing, do as I say, but not as I do. I'm the parent. I can get away with that. Not you. You're my child. It's my way or the highway. And that creates the power dynamics that, haunts us later in life, until we can open up in ourselves the heart of God that says, hey, that was never my will. That was never my will. I allowed it to happen so you could experience my grace, so you could experience my strengthening, not strength according to the world. I'm going to become powerful, wealthy, and dominant so I'm never humiliated again. No, no, no. That's not God's strength. God's strength is, I'm going to show you my love in a dynamic way that'll heal you and that'll help you to administer the joy of knowing my true love beyond what was done to you. I'm going to help you to heal your body. I'm going to help you to heal your mind. I'm going to help you to become whole again and experience that joy of the child of God you are, because you were created in my image. You weren't created in their image. That's the big ruse, where the world is like, okay, well, I got to do this and do that because I was created in their image. They said they had this feeling and opinion, so I'm going to go with that because they seem to be doing well. And it's like, no, no, no. You want to go with the heart. The heart is where it happens. The heart can connect you with all the aggression and pleasure you could ever desire. But here's the catch. We don't grow unless we heal emotionally. We can never grow bigger or better spiritually than the level that we're at emotionally. It's one system. We can never be really in the fullness of sexual union and truly share the fullness of ourself if our body has not come fully alive. And we really want to return as adults to that full embodiment of the loving sexual feelings of emotional affection for the opposite sex parent. We can heal into that because we had to shut down because of the pain, but we can come back alive in our adult life with a strong, secure sense of self, embodying the love of God. But we only embody the love of God when we heal our emotional woundings. It's one thing to hear somebody talk about God and, quote scripture or be religious, but it's a whole nother thing to witness their body. Are they filled with grace? Are they filled with compassion? Are they real? Are they authentic? Are they really who they are? And knowing that we can improve and become fully loving through healing the nervous system and through overcoming the past narrative that got anchored into us, that branded us with shame, fear, and guilt, like something was wrong with us. We can know, yeah, in God's eyes, I actually measure it. My favorite scripture actually is this one written in the Psalms. I think it's Psalm 27. I think it says, "Had my mother and father not forsaken me, I'd not have known the care of the Lord." Right there, this ancient scripture. Okay, you talk about inner child work, it's all there. It's all in the Bible. It's right there. I'm in love with Jesus because Jesus is the Lord of the heart. He is the look, he is the one that wants people to have reunion with their inner child. He he stands for that. Like, he's the God of that level of salvation, that we would have a felt experience of God's love in our soul, and that would be transformed by that. So it's not lip service. It's not a put on. It's not copying airs like we're somebody we're not. No, this is the level of depth that God brings souls to, so we can have an open heartedness. Yeah, does that make us vulnerable? Sure. But we were vulnerable as children. We're no longer that 6, 7, 9 year old. We can be vulnerable as adults and be authentic and still have an amazing, abundant life, greater than anything we could ever try to manufacture from our ego and from a mental perspective, because that's not living. Living is a felt feeling experience if we truly want to come home to ourselves. So, yeah.
Do you have an example of your mum's behavior that would kind of exemplify the pain she caused you?
Oh, several. Yeah. The most devastating thing that she ever said to me, the most devastating thing is, yeah, well, several things, but I mean, okay, so the first thing that really scared me, that really put the fear of God in me at a young age, was, I mean, I like the girl. I love the girls, and I think I was like 5 years old, and I loved my neighbor Hannah Berman, and she was straight across the street, and she was the first person I saw when we moved into that neighborhood. This big old Ford yellow station wagon, and I was in the very back of the station wagon with those seats that were facing out the window, and we pulled up, and I think I was 3 or 4 at the time, and I saw this cute girl playing across the street, and I was like excited. I'm like, oh man, I want to get to know her. I got neighbors and kids my age, and it's like meeting with her, and she was a couple years older than me. And, she was like, this was I'm really dating myself here. She says, "Hey, have you ever known about that song called 'Let's Get Physical'? You know what that means?" And kids are kids. We like to explore bodies. And we like to, oh, this is interesting. Mine's different than yours. you know, and playing doctor and that kind of thing. Innocent exploration, innocent. And I remember I was what was this song? Or she was like, Hannah was like, said something about let's get physical, and then do you know what hump means? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is cool. What does hump mean? And she's like, oh, and so I'm 4 or 5 years old, and I got on the phone and I called her. I was like, hey Hannah, I was like, Hannah, do you want to hump? And she and my mom, I heard this phone slam down. I heard my mom scream, and she came running into the room. She says, oh, you wait till your father gets home. I mean, she was serious too. And I was like, oh man, I just cowered. I'm like, I went and hid underneath the coffee table. It felt like a lifetime. And nothing ever came of it. But yeah, it frightened me. I was like, wow, I thought it was just And I was just being a little boy in my innocence, like, yeah, that's fun. Like, sure, I want to hump. I want to be like, what does this mean? Like, and so just little things like that of being scared of like, wow, I was busted. And now they know. Now they know that I'm the sexual being with interest in girls, and something's wrong with that. I could be punished for that. Oh man, this sucks. Like, I don't want to get in trouble for because of my body. And and that started to like, oh man, bad body. You almost got me in trouble. I can't really be this have as much fun, this much feeling, and little stuff like that. And but I think the most devastating thing that happened, and I'm comfortable sharing it now because this may help other people heal. Is that it was just this one time, and she was a teacher by this time, my mother, and we went on a little trip, and well, drove over, parked in front of the school. She was substitute teaching at, and she just looked at me and she says, I mean, I must have been, I think I was like 7 or yeah, I had to have been like 6 or 7 at the time. I think it was around 7. And she looks at me and she says, hey, she says, there was, a young boy here who raped his sister, killed her, and buried her in the backyard. And she looked at me and she says, would you ever do that to your young sister, Deborah? And I was like, frozen. I was like, what? Wow. You know, what is, I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know. It didn't even, but I knew I was being accused of something, and I felt dirtied. I felt like something's wrong with me that she sees that I don't know. She's saying something's wrong with me that I'm not familiar with, but she has a bad attitude and she doesn't love me. Like something's wrong with me. And that was the most, healing that kind of root of disconnection from myself because of that level. Really, that was such a demonic and satanic attitude from her. It was such a wounded and such an insecure, fearful, anxious thing. I mean, I look at like, was that mental illness? Maybe. I think that there was probably some there. Was it some craziness? Absolutely craziness. Rather than defining it with a label or interpretation, all I can say is that it hurt me deeply. It hurt me bad. Because she was super invasive like that, just so many times of even beyond that, just humiliation, from that whole event of hanging up the phone, with the phone crashing down and like, oh, I'm going to tell, there were times when we were carpooling with some other people from school. And, in that carpool, somebody talked about the zoo and somebody says, oh yeah, I like the camels. I like those humps. And, and I'm in the back seat and I just saw her eyes in the mirror, I kind of looked back, darted, glanced at me like, oh, Daniel knows about humps, doesn't he? And I'm just like, and it was just like this insanity of humiliation and really abuse like that's you know it's just abuse. It's so abusive. Such an unhealthy woman that I had as a mother figure that really kind of demonized me and really was so dehumanizing to the fundamental nature of my body that didn't understand, and my and that level of maturity at that age, I didn't understand, except something must be wrong with me. That's my mom, but I have this affection and this need for her warmth. I need her to love me. I need it. And so part of the mental models that were formed around that was, yeah, there's something deviant and something devilish and wrong with men and their sexuality. I know because my mom accused me of it, and I know that I had those feelings that were really real sexual, and I got punished and she didn't like me. So now I'm wrong and every man is wrong. We're bad. We're bad sexual men. Bad. And my God, that is overcoming that has been quite a journey. But those are the two very potent examples, and this is a mother that really wanted me to see do well. I think those are just like crazy episodes of her. I mean, there were other times when she was very affectionate and loved to go to my soccer games and loved to see me run track and was there rooting me on when my dad wasn't around. And so, there were those levels. And so it wasn't all bad, but when you have that level of very acute and pointed, damaging dialogue to a son that is powerless and helpless and 100% depends on a mother defining his relationship with his own body. This is what mothers do. Men know themselves and feel secure in themselves, defined by those early formative attachment connections with mother. It is what it is. And that's why men have their deepest woundings of shame in that disconnection from their bodies because of that dynamic with their mothers. And so, that's a little bit of, how that kind of shaped and really wounded me deeply, and how I adapted to that was developing a level of superiority over my body, developing a level of contempt and judgment over my own flesh and blood. And that had to be changed. I had to convert those bodily attitudes into acceptance, into unconditional love and presence, to heal from those ways that I was branded with from those terrible events. Yeah.
This is so interesting to me because I guess I've fortunately been surrounded by men who don't have hostility towards women, like men who are really like loving and have healthy relationships with women.
Mm,
And I guess even more mother, it would be on the other side of the unhealthiness would be like too much devotion from their mother. So it's almost like
mm,
blocks relationships because they're like so there's so much devotion there or something. Anyway, but this makes so
mm,
much because obviously there's a lot of talk from women. There's a lot of women who don't trust men and who have had terrible experiences with men and who feel like
mm,
men hate women. And then there's also stuff that occasionally I see on Twitter of like real hostility towards women. And I'm like, this is so foreign to me because I don't
mm.
know men like that. Anyway,
Yeah.
but now this is making sense that it's so weird that I've
Mm,
never clicked it together because obviously I've seen it a lot from the woman and father side when it's like there's an
yeah.
absent father or like the feelings that can, you can't trust men, men always cheat, men always leave, that abandonment. But I've just
Mm,
never, I feel like stupid that I've never thought like a damaged relationship between a son and a mother is going to impact the way men see women and potentially create.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And the same thing with women, as little girls, being damaged by an unhealthy connection with their father.
Mm.
It is like that is that forms the root of the arc in our personality, is that emotional connection to the opposite sex parent in our sexual feelings as young boys and girls. It is what it is. That's the truth of it. This is not theory. This is the living reality of our human body. Our human bodies go through the emotional maturity of the consciousness of life. It just is how it happens. Self-loathing and self-hatred, both from men and women, that always comes down to that root of the rejection of the lower body, of the rejection of our sexuality as children. That's the root cause. That's the root cause. And this is why I love bioenergetics, because it helps people incrementally heal into a mind body connection with the upper and lower body, so they can find balance within themselves between the feminine and masculine energy, so we can truly be that kind of balanced embodied child of God, where we don't take ourselves too seriously, but just seriously enough when we've done enough healing, because we realize I don't really have too much to protect. God has my back, and our bodies, as they become refortified and strengthened in life and vitality through the unconditional presence of God's love within us, that we can learn from people that have gone before us, that people that are more mature, people that are stronger, people that are seasoned in life, people that hold space for our development, people that teach us the right ways of body mind dynamics to know ourselves, and to know ourselves very thoroughly. Those lower body and upper body dynamics can be healed, so we can have a gentleness in our strength. We can have a graciousness and a humility in our strength and our passion. And that's ultimately where men and women want to be. But nobody was walking around, yeah, I love shame, I love suffering, it's great, I love being disconnected from my body. It's just we form these attitudes like, oh, this is normal, yeah, I guess I'm gonna go, you know drink myself drunk. I mean, it's just it's addictions and all the coping strategies is to try to live from a root of emotional pain that no longer has to stay with us because we're no longer those. We're still that child at heart, but we absolutely can connect to that child to balance ourselves out energetically from those mother father experiences we had as kids, so we can truly pair up in union, in that excitement and in that joy of experiencing the other, experiencing the opposite sex in a way where we're not hiding. We can fully show up. We're not, you know, people develop those complicated emotional strategies that we develop as children because it was the only way we knew how to cope with things. People bring that right into their adult relationships. And this is why relational containers, where we're going to end up being with somebody that's a reflection of the opposite sex parent. It's just the way of life. So you really, my suggestion is if you're doing the work, find somebody who's also doing the work so you can grow together. So you can grow in what God intended is to have a a naked confidence with one another in the transparency of your soul, and to be encouraging. What people do, they move in together, they get in a relationship, things aren't going too well, and then suddenly they have a critical eye, suddenly they're nitpicking and picking somebody apart, and they lose the heart, they lose the love, they lose the union of emotional intimacy that is there. But we just have to always be working on our own material first and overcome that, so we're not projecting. Suddenly we don't want that person to be a perceived threat to our body. When we heal our body and allow our body to feel safe and secure, then we can show up more fully ourselves, safe and secure. So the other person feels welcome to be vulnerable and to open up about their narrative. So many people are just on this performance based, well, I'm going to be, the daddy to her little girl and she'll be the mommy to my little boy. That's ridiculous. That doesn't work. Okay, it's kind of fun to say that. No. Heal, become a full person. Relationships should be equal, not a relationship of service to one another. It should be a dynamic partnership of an interesting love affair where it's just a constant spontaneous expression. And there are very real bioenergetic roles that come from the sexual nature of our bodies. Men naturally are going to be leaders. When a man is embodied, he's going to be a leader. Women will naturally be the submissive sex. It is what it is. It's beautiful. It's the way nature and life works. But to try to do that from the mental space without a feeling intuitive space is to become mechanical, is to become rigid, is to become trying to do life from the head instead of the body. And so, a lot of that is translates into, what I how I use my framework on Christian spirituality is that when it talks about in Ephesians, it says, no man, talking about husband and wives, sexual dynamics between men and women. It says, no man hates his own flesh, but he nourishes and cherishes his own flesh as Christ does the church. And I think we can both agree this is a pretty huge spectrum. A lot of men do hate their own bodies. I would say by and large, most men don't have a healthy relationship with their bodies. And so is the case with women. Women are just so much more sensitive to their bodies. They're way more in touch with their feelings and emotions, but it doesn't mean that they're in a healing relationship with their bodies. And so, my point there is the more that men understand their internal world and they travel that internal world with compassion, with a spiritual relational process that they mature and grow into, because really there's no limit to that. The depth and the texture of how we can understand and know ourselves and these bodies that are our sexual beings to live a flourishing life from. The more that becomes an experience and they have practices to cultivate that connection, the more they're naturally going to be who they truly are in their masculine core identity. The more they're going to be connected to the life of nature. And the more that we're connected to the life of our body, the more our intuitive navigation is going to come online, and the more we're going to be able to be there in the role that the woman's body needs us to be in. And that is the role of leadership. That is the role of strength. That is the role of our own knowing goodness. Women never want to be the mother to a man. It's a ridiculous thing. There's going to be resentment there. It kills the polarity. It kills it all. And so this is why inner work is so essential for men. Men that want to complain, oh yeah, she just wants to clip my balls. It's like blah blah blah. It's just no, she doesn't. You had a controlling mother, my brother. You need to heal on that level. Your woman's not doing anything to you. That's on you. You need to grow up. That's the truth of the matter. And for women, women that are like, why do the men just want to use me? And it's like, well, you need to heal. You need to grow up. You need to embody your sexuality. So many women are not in touch with their sexuality. It's just as foreign to them as a body is foreign to a man. But my point there is when the body is healed, we can bring forth our natural essence. And then that natural essence intermingles in nature's way. And it's beautiful. It creates the polarity. It allows us to be in that experience like we had as children, but now as an adult with a fully feeling body. So we can actually have the orgasm and the climax and the union with the other and the universe. We can have that, but the body has to come alive to experience that. So, it really is about this adult sense of self with the heart opening into the sexuality, that there's no shame, fear, or guilt. It's all grace and unconditional love. And then having a partnership and a union with the other where that can be explored together in the depths of union and intimacy. That's ultimately, God blesses that. That is what God wants. That creates life. We contaminate it with our own sophisticated people that are trying to do sex techniques and this, that, and the other. That's so ridiculous. Why? That doesn't get you anywhere. You got to bring the body back to life out of trauma. That is the secret to having a good love life. That is the key to unlocking intimacy in the bedroom, not positions or pills or blah, blah, blah. That's generic. You want to go to the root of the cause and get organic in that process and know yourself at the fundamental root of your sexual nature. Embody that, love it, develop a relationship with it. Then you actually have something to share with your partner. If there is fear, shame, and guilt that is being held back and hasn't been healed, that's going to come up. And that's what causes relational problems. We end up just repeating the unconscious patterns that we witnessed as children. And that's no fun for anybody.
Oh my god, this is so interesting. Okay. I have so many questions. But going back to your growing up, what
Yeah.
was your experience at school like? Did you have good friends and like what were you interested in? What did you enjoy
Mm.
doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So in elementary school, yeah, I mean, I've been able to heal enough to where I no longer look back at elementary school and be like, yeah, I peaked. I peaked in elementary school. I was so popular. All the girls loved me. I mean, I was like the third grader dating the sixth grader. I mean, I was really into older women back then, All the girls loved me. It's just, yeah, I mean, I was super popular. Like I loved it. And then yeah, it was incredible. It was an incredible experience, played sports and um yeah, and then middle school, it's okay. It's okay. It was kind of, I was an ugly duckling. It was a hard time, like me growing into my body. And, when the puberty started to hit in, I was like the last kid in school with my voice to change. It was, it was hard go. And was really into tennis and junior high went okay, and I was kind of struggling with math a little bit. And, math was hard for me. And, the thing is what really began to set in right around that age, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, was I began to really looking back now, I know what it is, but I began to kind of feel like, hey man, what's the point of all this? This is stupid. I'm not loved at home. I didn't know that was the attitude that I had, but now looking back, that's exactly the attitude. It's like, man, my mom doesn't love me. I'm not respected. My home life sucks. And so I kind of stopped trying to an extent. I kind of was like, yeah, this life is stupid. Like, I mean, and had some close friends though. Had some close. Was a big time skater. Really liked getting it. I was really a big time skater, and this was like late '80s, getting into the '90s, and then high school rolled around, And yeah, I mean, I liked dancing. I was always like the kid doing the breaking moves and the popping moves, and people would kind of circle around on the dance floor. and and so, I liked that. I still had a love for dance and energy and expression and movement, and I still do. I mean, it's one of my greatest pleasures, is dancing and music and letting it just stir me and move me. And I love the life of the body now. And so, um, in high school was rough. It really was, it really was, because the whole time, I had this mother that, girls would call me. My mom would just shut them down. Girls would write me letters. I'd come home. My mom would be reading the letter in my room. Oh, I see Heather wrote you. She had some interesting things to say. And I'm like, oh my God, mom. And it was just this constant, my youth. I'll just say this. My youth was not respected. My sexuality in my youth was not respected. It was, it was very hard, very hard. So, played tennis, really was into tennis a lot. And through high school, I did pretty well. I knew I was bright, but I just didn't really care. And then I started to get into, uh, then found a group that introduced me to marijuana. But before that, I found porn. And oh, did I love porn. Oh my gosh, I loved it. Um, it was the way for me to kind of return to this fascination with sex and a woman's body. And so it was all done in the dark. It was all done in the closet. It was all done in secret. And yeah, and so I had a terrible porn addiction, terrible. And it just kind of ate me alive. There was a time when and then I quit tennis. I think my junior year, going into my senior year, because I found a group of friends that loved pot and LSD. So did a lot of pot and LSD, and I just remember was even watching porn on LSD. I mean, you want to warp your mind. You want to warp your mind around sexuality and just hurt yourself about as badly as you can hurt and wound your soul. Yeah. Watch porn on LSD. Nothing is more horrendously twisting and marring to the human spirit than doing that. And so, yeah, it hurt me deeply. It really kind of put such devastating shade over my soul. Um, and so kind of just deadened me greatly. And yeah, I barely graduated. I mean, they didn't want to see me around campus anymore. My counselor was like, "Look, man, we just want you." um, and so, yeah, I mean, barely graduated. I learned how to write myself notes. I mean, I can write my mother had perfect cursive, and I learned how to write like that. And so I just write myself notes and missed, almost half the year in my senior year. And so it was a very, very hard time in my adolescence. Very, very difficult time in my youth. Was not respected. On the home front, my parents, family. And so I was like, shit, might as well just go out of my mind and be on drugs. And so, you know, but before that happened though, um, my, I had my first spiritual awakening right around 17 years. This is before I got into pot and before I got into LSD and real hardcore porn addiction. I had my first spiritual awakening right around 16, 17, because I got into martial arts. I didn't like how I was being bullied, and my parents could see that, um, I wanted to learn how to defend myself. And so I got into martial arts and got really good really quick. And, my body came alive in a certain way, Delia, where I was like, wow, I mean, I felt like I kind of had superpowers and I wanted to see how far I could go with this. And so I asked my instructor at the time, what I see in these martial arts movies, people flying through the air, uh, people like moving stuff without touching them. And is that real? And he's like, well, see for yourself. And so he gave me this little triangular box and how they ship posters through the mail. And it had a poster that had like a person in a lotus position meditating, the different outline of his organs and kind of the different planetary system behind him. And I was like, okay, well, that's mystical. And then another one on the pressure points of the body. And so I was studying that. And then the pamphlet is really what really surprised me. The pamphlet was talking about like God. It was talking about developing your chi, talking about developing spiritual abilities, being able to put a candle flame out with your eyes only, being able to move at the speed like cat like speed and reaction time and be able to, move stuff without touching it. And I was like, wow, is this real? It was all about like, you got to return to who you are in the ancient of days. People were seers, people could have visions, people opened up the third eye, and it was using scripture, it was using the Bible and talking about God and Jesus. And I'm like, this is wild. I mean, I've heard about these things. My parents been making me go to church for years, but this is the next level. And so I spent, hours meditating, hours doing this breath work. And it really wrecked me. I mean, it made me almost lose my mind because I did start to see people's spirits. I did start to hear stuff. I did have an out of body experience. I was tripping balls. And so I was like, my nervous system wasn't secure or strong enough to be able to process any of that. And so I retracted back to fear. I retracted back to fear. And then on top of that, got back into drugs, hanging out with the wrong friends. So it was a perfect storm to just hurt me bad. And it really did. It affected me on a deep, deep, profound level. And but life has a way of working those things out. And it just so happens that my mentor at that time, was a friend to me. Well, the mentor, the guy that was publishing that kind of material in the books and how to develop your energy and how to have these superhuman abilities. He had his phone number in the back of the booklet, and I called him as just this young boy, and I was like explaining some of his experiences, and and him and his sister at the time were running the company and taking calls, and they were both on the phone. And I was explaining some of the things that were opening up to me in there. And I remember his sister like, wow, you were we don't really talk to people that are this sensitive. I was explaining the things that I was experiencing. And I was like, is this real? I mean, this is crazy, right? And he's like, no, this is very real, whether you want to believe it or not. But he says, you really need to relax. Like you need to calm yourself down and do lying down meditations. You're going way overboard, son. And I was like, really? Okay, that's probably true. Yeah, that's me. I'm going way overboard. And so yeah, it was I remember those words, even in those conversations. I remember them now. He's saying, this is the process of refinement. This is like gold. Your faith, you are being refined through the fire. And you're becoming gold, but yeah, you have to change behaviors and change habits. This is God working in your soul, refining you. And I was like, whatever, you sound like my dad. Like as a teenager, couldn't really process that. I just knew that I wanted the power, and I also wanted to have fun, and I love my porn, and I love my so you know I was like, now I'm like, yeah, I was an idiot. And so but yeah, it was bad habits. Had I have been in a monastery being, mentored by monks, sure. But I had these raging hormones as teenagers do, and I was trying to become spiritual and develop abilities, and it was a train wreck. And so yeah, my system crashed, and I was like, wow, what do I do? And so I just contracted in fear. I couldn't talk to anybody about this. Nobody understood. They thought I was crazy. I was like, man, I saw this and I did this, and God loves me. And they're like, no, something's wrong. That's not real. And so I was like, damn it, nobody gets me, only that guy. And I couldn't reach him anymore. And I'm just like, oh my God, man. And so I just contracted into fear, and then became kind of very dogmatic, right and wrong thinking. And I was just trying to understand it through rigidity and through fear, because it was overwhelming to my nervous system. And so, yeah. And then years later, um, well, I mean, the story goes on, but really, that was such an eye-opening experience. And what I will say to that is, yeah, you can't mix. Um, if, as I said earlier, if we ever want to develop spiritually, it's a process of character development, of healing first the body and our emotions, and maturing emotionally, and then God will let the world be your oyster. There is no good thing God will hold back for the children that love him. And he'll give us all the spiritual abilities we want. He'll give us all the blessings our heart could desire if we put him first, because if we put him first, it begs that we develop in that relationship. It begs that we develop in character and a loving heart. It begs that the fruits of spirit begin manifesting because we're healing and growing up emotionally. So yeah, and then are those other cool things available? Sure, if you know what you're doing, if you have the right mentor, if you're respectful to your body and have a healing relationship with your body. Are there any limits truly to what we can do? No, there's not. We're that powerful, but we have a body we have to bring into a relationship, a healthy healing relationship, so the body's not overwhelmed, so the body can meet who we are in our true eternal self identity in a loving union and relationship. And so this is the kind of the coaching process I teach now, is a way on how to awaken the body, awaken the life process. People can call it kundalini and all these other ways, but the way that I teach, it's a very incremental, safe way of waking the body up, bringing the body online. And does it awaken spiritual centers and chakras? Yeah, all that. But I don't ever really like to talk about that, because if you do the work, the bioenergetic system I teach is, if you do the work, these things just begin to naturally unfold once you begin to truly be who you are. And so many people want to develop spiritual abilities, and they're talking about, ooh, how do I open my third eye? And it's like, man, you don't want any of that nonsense. Come home to yourself first. Heal those emotional blockages that are preventing from the life and vitality from flowing in your body in the first place. And you'll begin opening yourself up to life in a natural, organic way. When we try to force things and want to try to be somebody or have spiritual abilities more than just who we are in our vulnerability, more than who we are in our feelings and emotions, problems, just problems. It'll create nothing but chaos, and you don't want to open that box. you know, Speaking from experience here, I've been through all kinds of side effects, and so from that period forward, from childhood, high school, those experiences forward, this is all who I am now, and embodying the wisdom of what it is to overcome emotional repression, what it is to grow in a respectful relationship with the soul through the relationship I have with my own body, and then how that translates into practical everyday living of chopping wood and carrying water, but just enjoying the whole process because my entire heart's in it. And that truly is a spiritual path and journey that I'm excited to share with other people, because they can have those good feelings in themselves as well.
Amazing. Okay, so what did you do immediately after school?
Mm. Yeah, so right after high school, after all that stuff had been happening, is I was like, well, I could go to junior college right up the road, but why not, see if my brother, who was a very skilled, craftsman and carpenter, finished carpenter, worked with him to make money. So I moved down here to San Diego. It was my first stint here in San Diego. I moved down here when I was 18. That only, pardon me, that only lasted a couple of years though. And then I moved back home, and then I lived there for, pardon me again, and moved back home, and then that lasted a couple of years. And then from that point, came back down here to San Diego, and I've been here ever since. So, but that's what I did straight out of high school. Um, yeah.
And were you still
hmm
doing carpentry when you moved back
I
home?
I was. Yeah, I was working with my brother at a big shop, and they were creating the fixtures and the finished carpentry and the storefront pieces for different stores like Victoria's Secret, Gap, Lane Bryant. I mean, a lot of these stores we see in malls and shopping centers, and so it was a cool job. I mean, I learned the ropes and was very useful and at that time, and I met some interesting people, and but yeah. So that was kind of my first experience having left home, but to still be with family. My older brother and my older sister, I lived with them for the couple of years I was here. I not the entire time, but kind of moved out from them, and got my own place and was renting, and yeah, it was a very important developmental stage of my life. You know, went through some crazy things then, and then moving back home was kind of like, oh, you know, it was a really difficult go. But yeah, and so just one thing led to another. When in terms of transitioning down here to build my foundation and roots here in the San Diego area.
And when did you move away from carpentry?
Oh, I would say when I first moved back down here, I did it a little bit more, and you know, in the while I was doing that, I was trying to get some credits and at junior colleges and trying to do a little bit of school, this and that, and here and there, and um, but finished carpentry, I would say probably right around 1999 or 2000, and then where did I go from there? So from there, I was like so many jobs. I can't even recount them all. But the basic movement, the upward, was from there. I ended up getting my insurance license, and then started working for a mortgage broker, because we had to. There was a certain product that you had to get your insurance license for. It was like a more mortgage insurance. This is a ripoff now that I know this. So anyway, so I ended up getting licensed there, and then doing mortgages, and then this is when mortgages in the early 2000s when they were really popping, and then went and worked for another mortgage broker, and then I knew I had my insurance license, and that kind of that wasn't a great fit. So then I worked for the first insurance agency for selling life insurance, and that lasted a couple of years before launching out on my own and started my own insurance agency. And then from there, I ended up getting married, and within 6 months of marriage, I'm shattered on a skateboarding accident, shattered my right leg tibial plateau into 40 pieces. It was a limb-threatening injury. They put it back together again with 3 surgeries over the course of 3 months of recovery. But I was addicted to painkillers, and it ate up all of my savings. It ate everything up, and so I was just kind of really was a big blow to my ego, and it was you know I was lost. I was completely lost, and so it was at that time um, I ended up trying to find that guy that I spoke to in high school, uh, the spiritual guy that like had this knowingness and this power and this like, and I ended up finding him online, and I called him again, and and I was talking to him. I was like, wow. And now again, I was, oh man, I was on so many drugs. I was like on 3 milligrams of Xanax a day. I was on like OxyContin at the maximum dosage. I mean, I was jacked up. And so I called him, and he remembered me. And we talked, telling him about life, and then he kind of ripped me a new one. He really did. He says, "Listen," he says, you're just married for lust. You're just using your wife for lust, and you don't know anything about love. Talk to me again when you know about love. Like God has different plans for you than what you're going through right now. You're just using people, you're making excuses. You're like sarcastic on one hand, and then you're self-righteous on the other. He's like, you're a disaster essentially. And this is coming from a very high level, fully integrated man. This is coming from somebody that has, if you don't, I just say he's super developed. Like, he has abilities that people only see in movies or would think it's just that it's not real. It's real. And he was reading my heart, and he was reading my soul, and he could hear my tones, and he broke me down, and I cried for 3 days. It was the best conversation I've ever had. The greatest tough love I've ever been given from another man. It broke me down. I literally could barely go to work because I was so broken. And I'm almost getting emotional talking about it right now. I needed to hear that. I needed him to say those things. It changed my life. Changed my life. I ended up getting my job after that. and I was at that job for 16 years, and that's when, and it gave me a six-figure income from year one. I exploded. It built me up. It gave me everything I needed. It gave me financial stability, everything. It finally had me feeling like a man again because I was able to provide for my wife. I was able to be there, and you know, yeah, and then I was, and then within a year, within a year of working with him at that time, I was able to, put a straw in a container, sealed the container shut, was hanging the straw by a little thread, and I was able to move it with just my energy. And I was like, holy good, I'm doing this. This is me. I filmed it. It was like a kid at Christmas time. I was like, I went, honey, no, you got to check this out. And I showed her the video. and, and there were some other things that I was doing that was just tripping her out. And, I showed some other people and they're like, whoa. I mean, talked to some, it was my brother-in-law at the time. He's like, that's not biblical. He's like, well, that's not biblical. What are you doing? Like, what is that? Where is that in the Bible? And I mean, and so, that's kind of been my life story is like, I'm doing things. I have a way of framing reality, that a lot of people that are from a rigid, like, it's like, it's not going to make sense to a lot of people, but it did for me at that time. And it made complete sense because I knew I was feeling better. I'd overcome my addiction. I was leading the home with integrity. I was making good money. And but, a funny thing happened in that relationship is that I started to, um, you know, really understand that it was about healing. I started to understand how important the body, following energetic principles. If I wanted to grow greater and bigger in presence, that I actually had to obey the laws of energy. And in the system that now I'm an instructor of and that I was being mentored in, it really goes like this: that biophotons can carry 4 megabytes. I think I'm getting that right. 4 megabytes of emotional content and information, and this is subatomic particles. This is at the level of the atomic level, and so this is why it's so important that we have a healed body, that we can um, have a healthy emotional content. This is why the emotional brain, the limbic system, needs so much healing, because our body is always exuding the narrative of its life story. And so, at that time, I was kind of careless in my training. I was kind of started to become lukewarm in following the principles of energy training. And not only that, but energy in its natural state is hot and it's raw. I mean, it'll burn you if you're not careful with it. So not only can you program the energy with good, healing, healthy emotional content and tones that feel good to the body, but we can also program it with temperature. And so that's a big part of the energetic system if people are training in it, because the energetic forms and the process is so powerful. You have to cultivate it and give it attributes of a healing, cool temperature between 86 degrees and 92 degrees. And also biophotons will form and clump together in that temperature range. This is something that's people don't teach or train out there if they're into Kundalini or energy people or whatever. They don't talk about it on that level, but they also don't achieve the kind of levels that I'm at or that my mentor is at. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so, but I wasn't obeying that. I wasn't obeying these different principles by training in high level energy work. And so, yeah, like I had bad experiences. One experience was I just overwhelmed my nervous system and I couldn't even drink a drop of water or eat anything for 3 days. It was coming out both ends. And so it really it disciplined me big time. And so I was just like, okay, I don't want that side effect. And so I just stopped training for a little bit of time there. And then I started to get into more of like the emotional healing aspect of things, and I started to see myself become well emotionally. Met a counselor who was became kind of like a father figure to me. He was able to help me heal on even deeper levels, and so and then I noticed that there was kind of as I was healing and becoming strong emotionally, my wife at the time, she became more distant. And as it was explained to me, is like, yeah, if you start to grow, you're starting to you are now changing the narrative of how she felt love should be, that she had to take care of you, she had to be, there was a codependence there, that now she can't mommy you, now she's feeling that she doesn't have a job to do. And so really that was kind of the foothold of, you know, how things eventually ended up, where she had cheated on me and left, is because I started to get into the healing arts. How does this energy actually translate into changing my character? So yeah, I've had this rough and turbulent past, but how do I integrate that to become stronger in my core identity? And as that became stronger, she became more distant. And then right around 2014 is when really things began to get traction in my life on healing. And um, in that year, I was promoted to management. I was always a type A personality, top performer, striver, perfectionist, and so I was promoted to management. And as that was happening, I also was working out and went through this 6 month workout program, and I got shredded. I got down to single digit body fat, got the six pack, you know, chiseled and ripped. I didn't even know I had that in me, you know, especially with all of the body dynamics and body drama and body suffered greatly from body dysmorphia in my, you know, early 20s. And so, you know, this was a big revelation for me, Delia. I was like, wow, I started to look great, getting now promoted to management at the nation's largest life insurance agency. And I was like, wow, man, I'm, you know, king of the hill over here. And, uh, and so I had my management team, and I started to unconsciously, of course, I started to want them to be as good as me. You know, all of my standards that I had for myself and how I was transforming and what it took for me and my aggressive energy to be number one and to be great. Yeah, they weren't buying it. That wasn't them. I wanted to fix them. I wanted them to be different than who they were. And oh, it caused friction. It caused problems. Oh, my team didn't like me so much. They were kind of amazed and wowed by, you know, Daniel 2.0, Mr. Chiseled six pack with the new position, you know, and there was some resentment because I used to be an agent like them. Now I was their management. And so there was a lot of infighting, but I didn't make matters any better by being really, you know, hard nosed about things. And I knew that that's not the way I wanted it to go. And I was at that time I read this book. It was on a Tim Ferriss podcast that I heard this book, Drama of the Gifted Child by Alice Miller. I picked up this book, and it was super convicting. It convicted me because it was saying, hey, you will be the mirror image of your family system unless you heal. You can't help yourself. Don't blame yourself, but that's just who you will be, your body consciousness. And then it gave some examples like, have you ever been around somebody and they just seem polite and everything, and everything is going well, and you're exchanging the niceties and you're being, you know, kind and social graces, but then you leave and you're just like, why do I kind of feel like crap after talking to that person? What is that? Like, yeah, something's not right. And I don't think it's me. So, and I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense. Like, and I started to really see myself from that trauma perspective after all the years that had been through. I was like, shit, I'm doing it, aren't I? I'm being the hard ass. I'm being like my dad and my mom to these people, and they deserve more. But I want to heal. I know I have to change, and so. And then I read an amazing book at that same time called The Hands Off Manager, which is all about coming to a neutral position where you're not trying to fix people, you're accepting people, and you're so healthy and filled with life yourself. You're able to see life in them. You can see the potential and the vision. And I was like, man, I want this. I don't want to embody my family system of judgment and shame. I want to impress upon them that I truly care about them. And if I can do that, then they're going to perform better. We're all going to earn more money and we'll be great. But how do we do this? And so I found a guy in town who specialized in somatic experiencing, and he was a pro. He was really good. He was the first high ticket coaching program I ever purchased, worth every penny. With him, we met every single week for a couple of hours, and he would see me in my vulnerability. He would help guide me there. His nervous system was strong enough to help guide me there, and I would see things where I was like, "Whoa, so vulnerable." I found feelings that I was terrified of. I found stuff in my soul where I'm like, oh, man, it's just, and he was the witness to it. He was stable in his masculine frame of compassionate love for identifying me holding on to these things that I didn't have to hold on to anymore. So it was a somatic experience of moving through that and activating a connection with the deepest and most wounded, vulnerable parts of myself, and very, very healing. And the 3 month program, it ended with the therapeutic use of MDMA, and that really deepened my experience. And I'll tell you what, Delia, from there, my team became, from a struggling team, became the #1 sales team at that company, and people loved me. They fell in love with me. And I mean, you talk about a huge turnaround. And I bought a neural feedback unit. I'm like, oh man, I want to deepen this. And this neural feedback unit, I put in hundreds of hours on that thing. Hundreds. Most people are like, oh, you only need 20. I'm like, nope, I'm not stopping. Let's go. How robust and strengthened can I make, and strong can I make my nervous system? Because it's only leading to good things. And it was in those, after that coaching and after doing neural feedback, I would have moments of deep clarity, um, where it was kind of like, you know, I would find myself in a grocery store, and I would see that people were, life was in its perfect order. It was the first time when I felt like I could see life with clarity and spiritual perception that I'd never seen in my entire life, because I was so encased with tension and trauma. It was the first time when I felt myself finally feeling free.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this conversation. Feel free to share it with someone if you think they'd get something out of it. And you can also subscribe or follow the podcast, so then you find out about new episodes. And purely for my own ego, no, just kidding, I think it actually helps the algorithm and helps more people find the podcast. If you want to rate or review, like, go for it.